1993, I've been buying and collecting homeless signs from the homeless. Now, to set your expectations, I am not an expert on the homeless or on homelessness. I am a guy who was nervous and uncomfortable and awkward every time I pulled up to an intersection and encountered somebody holding up a sign asking for money. I would avoid eye contact. I would judge them, and then immediately I'd judge me. I didn't know who they were, but I made up stories about them, and I felt guilty. Of course, growing up Catholic, I felt guilty about just about everything. I'd ask, what are they going to do with the money? Is it even okay to ask that question? How did they let themselves get into this situation? I had no clue about these people, but I continued to make up the stories. The process always happens pretty much the same way. I roll down the window, I say, "Hey, can I buy your sign?" They say, "Sure, how much?" I usually try to let them set the price, although sometimes they don't want to. I noticed the shift right after the negotiations began. Even their body language started to change. And it took me longer to start to notice the shift that was happening in me. As you might imagine, this led to lots of very interesting conversations. There was the woman in Austin who only had one leg. She'd lost it about right here. She told me in great detail the story of the boating accident that happened when she was 20. She was hilarious, and she was genuine, and she didn't jive with the story I made up when I pulled up to that intersection. The guy that had this ninja kung fu sign, he did not want to stop talking. He wanted to hear my story, and he made damn sure that I was going to hear his. And when the people behind me started to blow their horns, he flipped them off and told them to go around. Many of the homeless asked me why I wanted to buy their signs. I told them that it was for some art project, but the truth was I had no clue what the art project was. But that's okay, I kept buying the signs. There was another woman, she was pitifully thin. And when she agreed to sell me her sign, she started crying. She told me her deceased husband had made the sign, and she turned it over and showed me his signature. You know, I treasure these stories, and I really treasure the signs. Not all of them are sad, obviously. Some of them are clever. This one came from a friend of mine in San Francisco. And I will make you the same deal that I make all of my friends. If you will buy and send me a sign, I will pay you for the sign and the postage. And as a bonus, you might get a story out of the deal. I've got hundreds of signs now from all over the place. The price range is from $4 to $25. I've had 3 people turn me down at $25. I had to set some kind of limit. I didn't want to be the first guy on the street who was there because he'd bought too many homeless signs. The longer I did this, the more comfortable I got. I'd shake hands with them. I had the conversations. I realized I was no longer afraid to talk to the people on the street. And the biggest shift that happened was that inside me, I realized it was no longer them and me, it was just us. I mean, what is home really? Have you asked yourself that? Is it where you sleep? Is it where you're from? Is it a house or an apartment? I've never been homeless. I was raised in South Louisiana, the oldest of 8 kids, a noisy family where we all fought for attention. And home for me was also a scary place. My dad was old school. He didn't know what to do with his anger. He had this big family and not much money, and when his anger got to be too much, he unleashed it. And it was usually on me, my siblings, my mom. There were visible bruises, broken doors, and worse. There were a lot of nights that I went to sleep with a pillow over my head so that I couldn't hear what was happening in the next room. So home was a scary place for me. It wasn't safe. This year, I made this really bizarre connection. In 1993, I started buying and collecting homeless signs. In 1993, I also wrote a long letter to my dad confronting him about my childhood. I asked him about who he was. I told him I wasn't going to be scared anymore. I wanted to know his hopes and dreams. 3 months went by, and he wrote me back. And he came clean. He told me about his regrets about the way he'd raised us. And those letters changed our relationship. I'm incredibly grateful for that. But I'm still curious, was 1993 just a coincidence? Or is there some part of me that was homeless? That part of me that was scared, that yearned for safety? And I didn't find it at home. Well, during the time I was buying these signs, I had a wonderful career in the advertising design world. In 2006, I sold my agency, and in 2008, I decided to go to grad school, where I got an MFA in Arts and Technology. And it was there that the ideas for a body of artwork using these signs finally began to gel. I explored lots of different directions, and in 2009, I had my first ever solo art show. It was called Home, with a question mark. There were signs glued to mirrors. There were signs affixed to the floor. There were large digital prints that were composed of lots of pieces of other signs. For the opening, I even hired a homeless man to stand amidst the guests and just have conversations. His name was Clyde. I met him in the art program at the Stew Pot downtown. He was into it. And I got to see a lot of my friends who'd never talked to homeless people before talking to Clyde. This show was a big step for me. I realized that for the first time, making art really felt like I was at home. After the show, I kept doing research. One of my classmates and I went out and photographed places where the homeless sleep. Another scary and provocative experience for me where I got to see where some of these people called home. The following semester, I was taking a class on interventionist art, and that led me to do a series of events that I called We Are All Homeless. 35 or so of us gathered at Mockingbird in Central, standing in a line, holding signs, and got to experience what it was like to be ignored by people in cars. When they did stop and ask what we were doing, we would hand out cards, and those cards would drive them to a blog that had information about the project and a list of other local shelters. Friends started to ask me when we were going to do another one, so we did another one. This time we had T-shirts printed up, same location. And then we did a third one. At the third one, we handed out dollar bills with the URLs written on the dollar bills until the police made us stop. Apparently, giving away money can create a disturbance. But I didn't care. What I did care about was this energy and momentum that I felt when I was collaborating with friends around a project that meant something to me. My final MFA show, I did the first really big installation of signs. I covered a wall in a gallery. After I graduated, I joined a collective. And it was former classmates, and we did a series of group shows. In one of those shows, I did the first hanging installation where the signs were suspended from the ceiling. In another show, we took over a vacant house. And I got a room, so I covered the floor in homeless signs, and then I watched as people struggled about whether it was okay to walk on them. I can't seem to stop. The signs are a part of me now, and I'm okay with that. I want to apply for a grant so I can travel coast to coast, buying signs, document that experience, maybe do a book or a huge installation at the end, find some way to raise some money for a homeless organization. The ideas keep coming. They say you shouldn't talk about work in progress. I'm talking about work in progress. I love the decay of the material of the signs, so I've been shooting some close-ups and envisioned some large prints of those close-ups. I've been shooting a series of photographs of young, attractive people holding signs, and I call this, "Can You See Me Now?" Bless my friends for always stepping up. One of my sisters and I are working on a series of quilts based on the homeless signs. And when I say we, she's doing the hard work and I'm being the bossy older brother, which I'm really good at. The most recent idea is a typeface made of actual characters from these signs. I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm really excited about it. Spending my career as a graphic designer, this really seems to fit for me. I'm not sure that I have many answers about home. Still, I see these signs as signposts of my own journey, of my struggles with what it means to be homeless, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Maybe even my desire to heal my own past, my own home life. Glenda in The Wiz said it best. Home is a place we all must find, child. Home is knowing your mind, knowing your heart, knowing your courage. When we know ourselves, we're always home. Anywhere. Thank you.